Greetings, Jelly Speeds, and welcome back to another episode of Monday Madness, the Monday show where I talk to you about anything and everything. And this week, well, it felt fairly appropriate to talk to you about the movie Wicked. I've seen it twice now because I'm a raging theatre kid and I have thoughts, so let's talk about it. Obligatory spoiler warning before we start this review. I will do an overview of what I thought of it with no spoilers whatsoever right at the very beginning, but after that, it is spoiler territory. So if you guys do not know the story or you haven't watched the movie yet and you don't want to know anything about it, then avoid the rest of this video, just watch that first bit and come on back when you have watched it. But if you do not mind spoilers, or if you've seen the movie already, then stick around for the whole thing. Alright, let's dive in. Here we go. I have split this video up into 5 sections. Part 1 is going to be the brief overview with no spoilers about what I thought of the movie as a whole. Part number 2 is going to be the things that I didn't like. There aren't that many things though, to be honest. Part number 3 is going to be all the things I did like. Part number 4 is going to be my hopes for part 2, what I'm hoping to see there. And part number 5 is going to be a really quick look at some specific moments of Easter eggs or just spoiler hints and teasers, that kind of thing. So just a couple of things I noticed in the movie that I thought were really, really cool. But first, let's go to the spoiler-free review of the movie as a whole. So as most of you will know, I am a raging theatre kid, I am a drama nerd, and I am a costumer cosplayer, and my god did this movie deliver in all elements. All of the costumes look absolutely incredible, loved every single one. We'll go into more detail about those in the things I loved section. The sets and the props as well, loving the fact that they were practically made and you could see them, they were physically there, absolutely loved that. Most of the songs were absolute belters as well. There was one that wasn't as up to snuff as the other ones, but it still wasn't bad by any means. Again, more on that later in the things I didn't like section. Visually, it's just absolutely stunning. There are so many colours, there's so much going on. Everywhere you look on the screen, it's absolutely full of stuff to look at, and the second time I watched this movie, I deliberately did not look at our main characters and I was looking everywhere else to catch all these little details, and I still would need another 4 or 5 watches to catch every single one, I think. The songs have been edited a little bit, some of them have been lengthened too to add some more things through them. A couple of them have got some more bits and pieces going on, but they haven't been remixed too much. They don't fall afoul of stopping sounding like a musical. It still feels and looks and sounds very much like a musical. It doesn't sound like a modern pop piece of music. It really does sound like Wicked the musical. Now, this is, of course, part 1 of 2 parts to this movie, and I, like quite a lot of other people, were a little bit confused by the runtime when it appeared that the movie was sitting at 2 hours and 40 minutes. And I will admit that one of the first assumptions I made about the runtime was that we were allowing half an hour for Jeff Goldblum to just do the Jeff Goldblum thing. And no offense if you like this actor, he's really just not for me, and well, you gotta admit, he does faff quite a lot. And while, I'll talk about this later on, there was some faffing, it definitely did not take up that much runtime at all, which I was absolutely delighted about. That was the thing I was very scared of. I was scared we were going to have obvious gaps of filler or just nothingness, and we really didn't have that, so I was very delighted with that. The runtime, actually, I didn't notice, and that I think is very high praise indeed. It does not feel like a film that is approaching the 3-hour mark at all. That will be it for the spoiler-free section of this review. Overall, I would give it a 9 out of 10. I think there were some moments that I'll talk about in a bit that could have had a bit of tweaking, but overall, it's absolutely fantastic. If you're a theatre kid, if you've seen the show, if you haven't seen the show, you should go and watch it. I think you will all enjoy it. As a movie, it's really, really good. As a musical, it's spectacular. Visually, it's beautiful. There's things for everyone to see, particularly if you are a theatre kid. So 9 out of 10, almost perfect movie. Loved almost every single aspect of it. I'll talk more about that in a second in the bits I didn't like. And overall, yeah, would go see again, would buy it on DVD. Highest praise from me. And now we're getting into the spoiler section. So if you have never seen this show before and want to watch the movie with no spoilers about the plot, you should probably leave now. And if you don't want any spoilers about specific moments from the movie itself before you go and watch it, jump on out of this video and then come on back when you have watched the movie. All right, let's talk about things I didn't like so much, but I promise you there aren't that many. Something bad is happening. This next thing is something that I have only started noticing in the last couple of years when I've been watching pieces of media, and it's because I have had to be working on editing my own videos when I've done music videos or little bits on TikTok or even these videos here. They're not movie editing, but I still have to cut, edit, and paste, and so I have a clearer idea in my head of how that process works, how you make the decisions, and how I like things to look at the very end, and what I like when I am watching something as well. Particularly for me, I found in the sequence of The Wizard and I. Now, this is a beautiful song, and the singing was amazing, everything was amazing, the set was beautiful, the way it started was beautiful, but I just felt that the way it was edited could have had a second or third go over. There were moments where there was a sort of tracking shot following Elphaba, but we couldn't see her mouth moving, and when she jumped, she had her back to the camera as she turned. I felt like there were moments like when she was jumping up onto the bench, we could have cut to a different angle and we would have seen the scenery better. And then there was a strange cave with the Jeff Goldblum wizard face in it that wasn't really explained. And then she runs out into a cornfield, which was very Wizard of Oz, don't get me wrong, but we'd been seeing all these beautiful shots of the university, and then suddenly she's left a cave and she's standing on the edge of a cliff. And I know that it was a sort of foreshadowing moment of her throwing herself off the tower later for defying gravity, but it just felt a bit like, I don't know, there was something missing, and I feel like it was missing from the editing. Possibly a different change of scene for that end bit, and I know that's just me being very picky about it, but it's such a beautiful song, and she was performing it so well and so emotively. I feel like she deserves some better editing for it. This leads me into my third point, which is really sort of a part of my second point about editing, and that is that at several points during several of the songs, we had backs to the camera. Not just extras dancing in the background, backs to the camera, but full-on Galinda, full-on Elphaba backs to the camera. And it was a little bit frustrating because it's a musical and we're seeing them singing. On the stage, you always cheat everything. You don't have your back to the audience. And when you're filming something, there's really no excuse. There's no excuse to have your back to the audience, especially when you are singing a song. Now, when you're doing a turn or a twirl, absolutely fine. In Dancing Through Life, there were moments where we had the back of Elphaba or the back of Fiyero or the back of Galinda as they were going around and doing all their moments, but you could always see someone else's face. But I think that is very important when it is a solo character singing a song that you see them singing it the whole way through. The two main moments that stood out with this for me are, again, back in The Wizard and I, you had Elphaba jumping up onto a bench with her back to the camera. The way that she turned was the wrong way almost because the camera should have followed her in the other direction and you missed her mouth singing. And there was another moment in that song as well where she's walking up some stairs and she goes through all these beautiful hanging colours and there's a good long stretch where she's singing and you can hear the words but you cannot see her because it's back to the camera, back to the camera, back to the camera, back to the camera, almost for 2 lines of dialogue, and you do not see her singing this part of the song. And I ended up feeling a bit like it was a cop-out because they couldn't get the mouth movements to match up or they hadn't got the right shot. That's how it ended up feeling, which was a little disappointing. And there was a moment as well at the end of Popular where Galinda is running up this set of, I'm going to say steps, but it's really, sort of like makeup palettes and a box and a dresser and things to do her final moment, and you couldn't see her mouth while she was singing the very funny line of just not quite as popular as me. The only word you really saw her mouth for was me at the very end, and I just felt like somehow that could have been cheated or filmed at a different angle. We should have seen her mouth moving. It's a musical, and it took me out a little bit of the songs in those particular moments. So I feel like the editing could have had just another 1 or 2 go-overs in certain places. Overall, though, it was very beautifully shot and paced, but that's why those few moments where it wasn't just stood out a little bit more to me. I feel like they could have just tweaked them a little bit and it would have been absolutely amazing. This next one is going to sound really, really nitpicky, and I know that it is, and it is basically a personal preference of mine. So I say this one with a huge big grain of salt. You guys may not have cared at all, and I don't care. It was just something that I noticed, and the fact that I kept noticing meant my brain couldn't stop noticing it. Elphaba's nails, they were so long. Very long. I know what they were going for, which was, oh, she looks like a wicked witch and she's got the big long witchy nails, but I feel they could have been, half an inch shorter, a centimetre shorter, and still given that vibe, but they looked so fake. And they were, you could see, particularly in close-up scenes, and bless her, on the child version of Elphaba, where she had the nails on, they looked so fake, and you could see them so clearly. I just feel they could have been a little shorter, and it would have blended in a lot better, because one of the changes I really like is that they didn't give her a red lip. Her face looks so much more natural, because you're getting all the close-ups. On the stage, of course, it is different. You can't see her face as well from different parts of the audience, so they give her a red or a darker lip so you can see all the mouth movements and things. But in this, the green lips, absolutely loved those. But the nails just felt a touch, a smidge too long for me personally, particularly when they went into the Emerald City and they both got their nails done and you could see all the details on them. They stood out a lot more when she held onto the book and things like that. So it was a lot more, it distracted my brain. but that's just me. On a similar note, I could not stop noticing Galinda and Elphaba's lashes. My word, they were some fabulous lashes. They were huge. And while for most of the time it wasn't too distracting at all, it just occasionally caught my brain because they were, as I say, so very, very long. Long nails on Elphaba, very long lashes on both of them. And it's a vibe, it's a look. They both looked absolutely beautiful all the way through this film. I just think the lashes could have been, a bit like the nails, a tiny bit shorter, but really it's a tiny nitpick, and I appreciate that's just, my own personal feelings on that. All right, moving on to a slightly less stupid one. Okay, I said moving on to a less stupid one. I take it back. This one is also quite stupid. And again, probably literally just personal preference. I did not care very much for Galinda's two sassy friends. I feel like the lines that they were either given or improvised, they felt very, how shall I say this? They felt very TikTok-y. And I say this with absolute love as a TikToker and cosplayer. It just felt a lot like their lines and moments are going to date this movie a little bit. And in 5, 10, 15 years, when people go back and rewatch it, those lines are gonna feel a little out of place because they are very dated to the sort of TikTok social media era that we've got right now. I can't explain it too much. It was just a feeling that I got. They were perfectly good at being sassy and quippy, and some of their moments were really funny, like when they picked her up and said, "I need a pastry." That was very funny, and at moments they were very entertaining, but just overall they felt a bit like they could have been fleshed out more. They needed more to do. It felt like they weren't given a lot of script. It felt like a lot of their moments were just silly quips, and I feel like it could have been so much more than that. They could have had more to do. So yeah, I think that's what I wanted. I didn't hate them. I just felt like they should have been given more. And what they did do, yeah, as I said, may date this movie accidentally. All right, the next thing I'm going to talk about is the elephant in my room, at least. Jeff Goldblum as the Wizard.
And you gotta give the people what they want.
Now, I will admit, I was more worried about this than I needed to be. He really wasn't as faffy and all over the place as I was concerned he was going to be. And his song was fine. It wasn't bad. It wasn't Cats the movie bad. It wasn't Les Mis at points in the movie bad. But it wasn't great. He did it fine. It was fine. It was just fine, but it was nonetheless fine. But when every other song in this movie was an absolute banger, it was just, fine. He did faff a little bit as well, and I've got to be honest, I didn't feel like he knew his lines. I feel like he was being fed them through an earpiece or told them just before he went on set. He did a lot of, and there was a line where I genuinely feel like they left in a cut where he forgot what he was supposed to say. The line was something like, "If my head wasn't screwed on, I'd have left it in Munchkin Land." But in the scene that they left in this movie, the way Jeff Goldblum did it was, "Oh, if my head wasn't screwed on, I'd have left it in Munchkin Land." Now, I appreciate what they may have been going for was that the wizard is so forgetful that in saying, "Oh, I am very forgetful and I would forget my head in that place," but that was not how it came across. When I was watching, it felt like that was a line he actually fluffed as an actor. Now, I suppose you could argue that, he really convinced you that he really forgot it, and I suppose maybe that's what they were going for, but I think if they wanted to hint that he was a super major forgetful character, they probably should have done a bit more with that, because it really did just feel like he fluffed the line and they left that cut in. All right, enough about Jeff Goldblum. Let's talk about the next part that I wasn't so keen on. I'm going to feel like a terrible person for saying this, and the only reason I'm saying it is because I feel that I should be honest. I promised to bring you an honest review, and this is honest. The moment where Elphaba is dancing by herself and everyone is laughing at her, it went on about 30 seconds too long for me. And I appreciate this is completely my issue, because my second-hand embarrassment could not cope. It was so cringy and so awkward and so heartbreaking, it hurt me too much. And I appreciate that's exactly what they were going for. Perfect, amazing. That moment with her and Galinda afterwards, that sort of long dance between the two of them where it's slow and quiet and the beautiful music is playing, absolutely perfect, absolutely wonderful. Elphaba by herself. I know you're supposed to feel awkward, but my God, just a few seconds off of that, it was doing its job far too well, and I was cringing into my seat. But again, that does just mean that they did their job properly, and it is completely on me, but I feel like it would have still had the same power and impact if you'd cut just Just 20 seconds, 10 seconds off it. I feel like it could have had exactly the same impact, particularly because the big impactful moment was Galinda coming to her and them having their dance together. I feel like you could have just cut a tiny little bit off of the dance before that, and it would still have been just as awkward and sad and angering and all the emotions you're feeling for her. But again, that is mostly because my secondhand embarrassment was absolutely killing me. So ultimately, maybe it's a perfect scene because it made me feel like that. I'm not sure, but I'm talking about things I didn't like. That's just one of them. But again, I'm very willing to admit that it was, for a good reason. You're not supposed to like it. So maybe it goes on the things I like list as well. I'm not sure anymore. But that's the last one, so let's talk about things I did like.
Popular, you're gonna be popular.
So we're starting off with the obvious ones. I'm a theatre kid, I'm a drama nerd, I'm a cosplayer, I love sets and props. I have built them for my own music videos, so obviously I visually love everything in this movie. All of the costumes are fantastic. Every single thing Galinda was wearing, my god, they look fantastic. The stuff we saw in the trailers does not do it justice. Every inch of her outfits has been carefully thought out, down to the hairpins in her hair, the shoes that she is wearing, her accessories. Everything is stunning, fantastic. Oh my good god. Everything that Elphaba wears too, absolutely stunning. I also love the evolution of her school uniform. So you see her as a less confident person, and then when she gets Galindified, and she has the really cool sort of waistcoat and the half skirt, half pants thing going on. Fantastic outfits for her, love it. I also love every single student at Shiz. The way that they all have the same rough uniform idea, the same color palette, patterns and textures, but they've all got a very different version of it. So some have pants, some have skirts, some have half skirt, half pants, some have jackets, some have shirts, some have overcoats, some have little jumper things. It all looks amazing. It's very cohesive. You can see that they all belong to the same university, but they all have a very different version of the costume. They're each individualized, and it's so cool. Other visual things I friggin' loved were the sets. I have seen some of the behind the scenes moments, and the fact that they physically built these places and you can really see it. It's what I have always said, physical props, physical set locations, so much better than CGI. I think they look so much better on the screen, they come across so much better, and the actors actually have something to work with. You can see the way that their costumes and their hands and everything actually interact with the environment that they're in, because, oh shocking, they're actually in the environment. Love that, love it so much. Every single set was amazing. I really hope that they're going to go the sort of Disney Universal route and get a park or a place where we can go and look at these sets, because I would love to go and explore Shiz University, walk around Munchkinland, so many different things like that. Absolutely love the practical physical effects. Love. So costume sets, hell, I'm a theatre kid. I was always going to love them. They were practical, they're amazing. So let's move on to the next part of things that I loved. This one's a fairly obvious one. I've talked about it before. I loved most of the songs. Every single one, with the possible exception of Sentimental Man, was an absolute banger. The singing I already knew was going to be amazing. We had Ariana Grande, we know what she can do, and we have the wonderful Cynthia, oh my god. As soon as we heard Elphaba's first few bars of The Wizard and I, that was it. That was it. I was hook, line and sinker. I was so sold already. I was absolutely there, and that just put the final nail in the coffin. Amazing. She sold every single thing. Emotional, beautiful, the range, everything that she did. Incredible in every single song. Galinda as well, absolutely fantastic. Madame Morrible, everyone, the friggin' ensemble, they were doing their absolute damnedest. They're singing, they're dancing, they were phenomenal. Everyone in this, absolutely amazing, incredible. The possible exception is Sentimental Man, but really and truly it was fine. It's just that everything else, as I said, was so incredible. It could never really live up to them. Another thing I really enjoyed was that the film took the same approach that the stage show did, and they managed to perfectly balance the comedy and the seriousness and the tragedy. There are some really dark themes in Wicked, and there are some beautiful, hilarious comedic moments as well. We'll see this even more in Act 2 with the whole "you can't all come and go by bubble" moment and things like this. But in Act 1, you've got, the animals plot and the seriousness of that, and Elphaba struggling with the magic and her sister and her family and her feelings, and the way that the world is turning slightly darker around everybody. And then you've got the comedic moments of not just Galinda. Elphaba has comedic moments too. Fiyero as well. Think of their first meeting and then Fiyero saying, "And the defensiveness, is this a new development?" That was funny. And you've got Galinda. I'll admit some of the moments with her friends were quite funny, with the "you need a pastry," that moment, that kind of thing. And just Galinda in general. Her presence on the screen was mostly very light-hearted and bringing some light to otherwise quite serious moments, but they got the balance. Very similarly to the stage show, they managed to balance both of them out and it works incredibly well. Something else I really enjoyed was the thought that was put into Dr. Dillerman's character, in particular how he interacts with the world. They had never drawn any attention to it. It wasn't exposition. It was more show, not tell, which I very much enjoy. But you had simple little things like how he has steps up to his projector and little buttons for him to kick with his hooves, and how to make tea. There's a hoof-shaped indent where he pushes the teapot, and the cup he can slip his hoof into so he can sip on it. Little things like that that just show how he exists in the world. And I really, really enjoyed those as just little touches as a theatre kid who loves, practical effects and props and things, but also just someone who loves to think about character development and world lore as well. I love that they went in depth enough to think, well, how would he drink a cup of tea? How would he be able to do this? It really felt like a home that belonged to him, items that belonged to him that he could use and had used with ease, and no one questioned it. It was a really good little touch that I really enjoyed. And the last thing I'm going to talk about, because otherwise this section is going to get incredibly long, simply put, I loved most of this movie. So the last thing I'll talk about for now on the things I really liked list is the Grimmery. I loved their design for this book. Originally I thought, oh, it's a triangle. Oh, that's really, really cool. But then it opened up into a second triangle and it was like two sort of kite shapes on top of each other in the way that they flicked. And one book went one way and one went the other way as the spells were flickering and the pages started to come off, almost like a 3D pop-up book effect while the spell was taking place. That was absolutely brilliant. I loved that touch. It was absolutely glorious. All right, let's wrap up this section and move on to the next. My hopes for part number 2.
It's time to try to find.
So one of the things I really want to see in part 2, because it is a movie and we will have the time to do it, is I want to see some flashes of Glinda learning her magic. I want to see her and Madame Morrible, their vibe developing, because of course they didn't really like each other to begin with. Madame Morrible doesn't have any faith in Glinda, but now she has no choice but to use her. And so I really don't want to just cut to Glinda can do magic now. I want to see her learning at least just a little bit. I want to see her learning and struggling and maybe the happiness that she has when she finds that she can do some bits of it, and with the wizard's help, the different way that things can happen. So I definitely want to see more of Glinda learning or trying to have a learning journey, that kind of thing. In a similar vein, talking about magic, and because I've literally just mentioned it in the things I like section, I really want to see more of the Grimmery. I'm sure that we will. We're going to have No Good Deed, and I am sure that's going to be beautiful. I want that to be shot absolutely perfectly. I have the highest of hopes because No Good Deed is one of my favourite songs from the entire show, and I want to see that Grimmery book. I want all the beautiful angles. I want to see her face. I'm very excited to see more of this book. So No Good Deed / the Grimmery, want more. Speaking of No Good Deed, I want to see the Scarecrow transformation and of course the Tin Man transformation as well. I did warn you there'd be spoilers in this video. When those happen, I know that it's a PG rating, but I want it to be dark. I want it to be as scary and dark and twisted as it is. I want to see it happen, particularly the Tin Man. The Scarecrow, I know it's sort of a surprise, so we don't completely see it, but I really, really want to see it with the Tin Man in particular. I want to see Boq turning into the Tin Man and it be horrifying. I don't want it to be Disney-esque. I don't want it to be cute and silly. No, I want it to be scary. I want it to be terrifying. It doesn't have to be gory. I just want it to be really, really scary and intense and dark. It's one of those dark moments in the stage show. I really want to show that. I want him to be scared, Nessa Rose, Alphabet, everyone to be scared, and I want to feel that moment. I want it to be big. In general, I want to see more of the costumes, more of the props, more of the sets, more of pretty much everything that was good about this movie, which is most of the movie. So yeah, those are my hopes for part 2. What are your hopes for part 2? Let me know in the comments down below. Obviously, what do you think of this movie, the musical, etc., etc. Chuck those down below. And now for part 5, which is a really quick and short section where I just want to talk very, very quickly about some little Easter eggy fun moments that I just thought were really, really cool. So serious spoiler warning for this bit. If you do not know the ending of the story of Wicked, yeet away now. If you haven't seen the movie and you don't want to hear about any, for example, cameo appearances, look away now, scroll off this video. Alright, you're still there. Alright, cool. So, number 1, the moments that I really, really enjoyed, obviously, was the cameo performance. I am a theatre kid. I am a sucker for a cameo. I really friggin' enjoyed seeing our original Elphaba and our Galinda back again. Of course, the vocals were phenomenal, fantastic, everything you want. The fact that they were being the gods of this world, yeah, that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? They did start Wicked, you know, they've been there from the beginning, that kind of thing. And I love the moment where each of them went to their actor as well. So Galinda went to the new Galinda and touched her cheek. Elphaba went to the new Elphaba and they had a moment. I think it was really sweet. It was obviously, you know, theatre kid fodder. It was there for us. If you didn't know who they were, it wouldn't have mattered at all. But to us little theatre kids going, oh, they're passing on the torch, it was just a really sweet moment. So yeah, it might have been just feeding us what we wanted to see, but I'm very happy with that. I did not mind. I thought it was a really sweet moment. Another cute detail I liked was when Elphaba was riding on the bike and she had the little basket on the back, and it obviously was harkening back to the Wizard of Oz and the evil witch in the real world trying to ride away with Toto on the back of her bike, and obviously that's what they were going for. I thought it was really funny. It looked really sweet. I laughed in the cinema because I was like, oh, it's a reference. I get that. It was a very cool moment. I really liked that. And finally, the last thing in part 5 of the little extras and Easter eggs that I spotted that I thought were really, really cool. And this is right at the very beginning of the movie. And a few of my friends spotted it as well. I hope you did. So at the beginning, and again, major spoilers for the end of Wicked. If you do not know the ending of Wicked, look away now. So, at the very beginning of this movie, it starts. You are in the destroyed castle. You see the big puddle of melted witch and the witch's hat. You can hear Galinda talking to the Ozians and saying, the Wicked Witch is dead, all of this stuff. And then you follow with the music. It goes, do-do-do-do-do-do. You fly with the monkeys out of the window and over the castle. And then you see a shot, a beautiful shot over. You see the yellow brick road. You see Dorothy and the Scarecrow and the Tin Man and the Lion and Toto. And they've got the broom and they're walking down the yellow brick road. And you see the Emerald City off in the distance. But, pause, rewind. Because just before that moment, there is a blink and you'll miss it section where right down the corner, the left-hand corner of the screen, you can see a horse, a dark horse, a dark, nay I say, Fiero's horse-looking horse, riding away from the destroyed witch's castle. And the horse is not alone. It has a rider on its back with a long black cloak on. And we all know who this is most likely to be, don't we? So I am very excited to see that get referenced back in part number 2. Well, that will bring us to the end of this review for the movie Wicked. I hope that you guys enjoyed yourselves. I hope that if you haven't, you have been persuaded to go and watch the movie Wicked. And if you have seen the movie, let me know what you think down in the comments down below. Let me know what you think of the stage show. What is your favourite stage show? What did you love about this movie? If there was anything you didn't like, what did you not like? I'm really sorry for the few nitpicky things I said that I didn't like. I promise I still love the movie. And I will see you in a few days' time when I'll be doing the next part of the OC story, and over on the TikTok I'll be doing a few bits and pieces as well. And next week I'll bring you another Monday Madness. I think I might talk about the Dragon Prince because we've got another season of that coming very soon, haven't we? So I might go back and talk about the last one because I had thoughts. All right, I love you all. Don't forget to hydrate yourselves. Be good to each other. Goodbye.